Welcome to Cenegenics Live, for women only. On the line, we have Dr. Mickey Barber, Age Management Specialist and CEO of Cenegenics Carolinas, as well as her current patient, Dr. Lynn Gartenhouse. Please stay tuned to ask your questions to Dr. Mickey Barber and Mrs. Gartenhouse.
Thank you so much. We are going to get started, and as Shane said, I'm Dr. Mickey Barber, and I'm the CEO and owner of Cenegenics Carolinas, and we are an age management medical practice. And we're very excited to be doing this call tonight. This is our first for women only teleconference, and it's really possible because of the participation and generous support of our patient, who is Lynn Gartenhouse, and I want to welcome Lynn to the call. And I think we'll start out by Lynn just telling us a little bit about yourself, Lynn, personally and professionally, and kind of bring us up to date a little bit about who you are.
Okay, that sounds great. I want to welcome everybody also, and hope you find the show informative and interesting today. I'm 58 years old. I have been happily married to my husband, Howard, for 35 years. We have two children, a daughter and a son, 29 and 31. And my professional career, I started out with 15 years in a retail business with my husband's family. After that, in 1990, I opened a home for abandoned, abused, and neglected babies, which still exists today. After that, I was Director of Development for Second Genesis, which does drug and alcohol rehab. I retired a couple years ago, and I spend a tremendous amount of time doing dog rescue. My husband and I foster dogs, and I'm an adoption coordinator. And we do a lot of traveling and just try to enjoy life as much as we can.
Wow, you've been a very, very busy woman. And so, gosh, how did you hear about us, and why did you decide to call Cenegenics?
Well, I was really having a tremendous amount of health problems 2 years ago, and two of my friends told me about Suzanne Somers. One of them had seen Suzanne Somers on Oprah, and another one of my friends had her book. And many of the symptoms that Suzanne Somers had in her life sounded exactly like me, so they both encouraged me to look into it. I read Suzanne Somers' book, and it was basically about the bioidentical hormones program, and Cenegenics was listed at the back of the book, and I couldn't call Dr. Barber fast enough to get help.
Well, so tell me this. So all this dog rescuing and things that really keep you busy, I mean, how were you feeling when you decided to make that call?
Oh, well, I have to tell you, I'm an entirely different person, as you will also say, Dr. Barber. I actually thought I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I felt horrible. I had no energy. I didn't feel good. In fact, the symptoms almost felt like having the flu without the head cold part of it.
Oh, wow.
I did not leave my bed for days at a time, and I had no energy, or I basically did very little of anything. I basically just lived my life, got through, grocery shopping and cooking meals and, a few outings here and there, but I felt too awful and too tired to do much of anything. And I thought I had some kind of serious disease or some kind of serious problem, and I was pretty desperate when I called you.
Wow, that must have been really hard on you and your family. I mean, knowing you now and what I know about you in your past, I mean, you've always been an energetic, vibrant woman. I mean, did that take a toll on you emotionally?
Oh, terribly. And what it did was I've always had some problem with the depression, but it made the depression that much worse. And it kind of became cyclical. It was almost hard to tell which was worse, the depression or the way I was feeling. My husband was very sympathetic, but it was hard because he would want to, go to movies and do things, and I just didn't have any energy. And my friends were also sympathetic, and when they didn't hear from me for a while, they knew I wasn't doing good, and they would call me. And they would pretty much have to force me to get out of the house.
Oh, goodness, that's really hard. Now, part of what you're describing could be attributed to perimenopause or menopause. Were you having any other kind of typical signs that your hormones or that menopause was part of this?
Oh, absolutely. And I looked into that. I had spoken to my gynecologist. I was having hot flashes. I had trouble sleeping through the night. I had terrible memory problems. I had vaginal dryness. I had no sex drive. And it was extremely debilitating. When I went to my gynecologist, she kind of shrugged her shoulders and said there really wasn't much to do. And I was not a candidate for any hormone treatment, so I felt like I had very few options. I had also talked to other doctors, coincidentally, in conversation socially with people, my regular doctor saying, you know, there's got to be something wrong with me. But by my regular blood testing, the regular testing that my doctor did just didn't show anything. So I kind of was ready to give up and kind of give in to chronic fatigue syndrome until I talked to Dr. Barber.
So that you were not a candidate for hormone therapy. Do you know why that was? Was it anything in particular, or just that your numbers didn't?
My numbers didn't show it, and I guess my symptoms didn't seem bad enough to her. And most of us trust our doctors, and when your doctor says you're not bad enough or you don't need anything, you trust them. Mm-hmm. And where do you go? You know, this has she's been my gynecologist for years. In fact, she and my husband and I went to high school together. This is somebody I knew, and she just threw up her hands, and so did my regular doctor, and I just felt lost. I had no one else to turn to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, once you and I had spoken and you decided to come and see us, the first step was really to get your blood work and then for you to come for your executive health evaluation. Can you tell us a little bit about how you felt or how that first day went for you?
Well, I was pretty floored. Whenever I had been to any one of my doctors, they took your blood and would call you if anything was wrong, and you had, 15, 20 minutes with your doctor and tried to get everything covered in 15, 20 minutes. And I was floored because you all wanted me there, I think it was, 3, 4, 5 hours. And I couldn't imagine what you were going to do with me for that amount of time. In fact, I remember I brought a book with me because I figured it'd be like at a doctor's office, and you sit there for an hour, and they talk to you for 5 minutes, and you sit there for nothing.
Right.
I had no idea the extensive examination I was going to get.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've read recently that a typical physician's office visit lasts less than 3 minutes. Now, I'm going to kind of go through what an executive health evaluation that first day looks like, and then I'm going to kind of ask you some things about it, Linda, just to go through and tell what we do. The first thing is, we send someone to the patient no matter where they are. So, and that's an important part, too. You don't live in Charleston full-time, correct?
No, I live in Maryland, so somebody always checks with me monthly to see where I am, and the phlebotomist shows up at my door usually around 8 o'clock and takes the blood, and then I can start my day. I don't have to go anywhere for it.
Yeah, that works well, we think. And then, of course, we get your results. And you don't even probably know this, Lynn, but we get your results and we get your health and lifestyle questionnaire filled out, and it's sent to us, and we review that, our team, before the patients ever arrive. So we've already started to think about how can we really maximize the patient's experience while they're here, and how can we really individualize a program for the patient, because as you said, we're going to have you here for really almost 5 hours, and we want to make sure that your time and our time is well spent and that you really find it a valuable experience. So we get the blood work, and just some of the things that we check in that blood work are, of course, hormone levels, and this is for men and women. We're looking at testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, DHEA, thyroid, insulin, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and some other disease risk markers, vitamin D. So we'll have those results, and we will have reviewed them before the patient arrives. Then while you're here, we do a number of different testing. We test your body composition. We're going to do a scan that looks, and it tells us exactly, it's the gold standard of what your body fat is. what your muscle mass is and what your bone density is. Now, you haven't really mentioned, Lynn, that you were concerned about your weight, and that's kind of unusual. We hear a lot of complaints about men and women, particularly women in that perimenopause or menopause, maybe carrying a few extra pounds. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Was that a concern of yours before your evaluation?
It was a big concern of mine. I did forget to mention, I'm glad you brought it up.
Lynn, can you speak up a little bit more? I'm kind of losing you on my end.
Oh, okay, yes. It was a concern of mine. Over the years, I had put on, is that better?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I had put on about 15, 20 pounds. Well, the amazing thing was I don't eat that much. I'm pretty disciplined in my eating, but I found that I was putting on weight anyways. And one of the things that we found out through the examination was that I weighed, I think, 134, 136 when I came in. But I was actually, because of my body fat, which was 38%, I was in the obese category. And part of the problem was I had too much fat and not enough muscle. Muscle is what burns calories, which is part of the reason I was gaining weight. And I was also not exercising because I was just too tired to move around.
Right. I remember that. I remember that, we had to kind of ease our way into exercise. Now, also on that body scan, we look at your bone density. Were you concerned about bone loss for you personally?
That's a huge issue in my family. We're all kind of small women with small bones. I had my aunt, my father's sister, started out. She was tiny to begin with. She was 4'9", and between 50 and 70 lost 2 inches of height through bone loss. And then my mother had 2 aunts and her mother who literally died of bone fractures when they were older. So I knew that I was headed in that direction and was very worried. Now, again, my gynecologist told me it wasn't time to do anything. And that's very different than working with your program. We are working on that. And I did see results in the first year. There was bone growth in different areas of my body, so that was very exciting. I don't feel scared about that anymore.
Yeah, good. And it's a good place for me to bring in here that we're not just about, treating symptoms. And we know, you had a lot of things that were really affecting the quality of your life. But we're also about preventing disease, and even if, women experience some amount of bone loss really beginning in their late 20s, early 30s. So the earlier we set up a proactive preventative plan for men and women, the more likely we are to be able to ward off some of these conditions that, we're really concerned about. And osteoporosis certainly is high on the list for both men and women. Now, one of the other tests that we do during the evaluation and our annual evaluations is a cognitive assessment where we really focus on executive functioning, memory, focus, recall. You mentioned that you were troubled a bit by your memory. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Lynn, and about the testing?
I have to laugh because my test results were pretty pathetic, and I wasn't really surprised. I've been having terrible problems with my memory, and kind of brain fog, I think, is the best way to describe it. And I remember, not wanting to take the cognitive test at the time because I knew I wasn't going to do very well. And, while I was taking it, I was going, oh, my God, she's going to think I'm an idiot. But what was really exciting was that I know I did, below average on a number of areas for the cognitive test, but came back average and above average. So in 1 year, I've made huge strides in that direction. Doing dog rescue, and I can handle 4 or 5 dogs at a time, is a very complicated system. It's actually very hard to adopt a rescue dog, and sometimes I can get 4 or 5 applications for one dog, and there's different stages, and I have to keep track of who I've emailed and who I've talked to, and all about the dogs, what makes the dog tick, and I don't have a problem with that anymore. It's pretty amazing.
So the fog has lifted, it sounds like.
Absolutely, and I think now I have the kind of typical stuff for my age, putting my keys down in the wrong place. So that I hear is normal.
Yeah, I think there's part of it that we may just have to deal with, but certainly when it starts to affect, your work or your relationships, then it's something to really pay attention to. And we have, I have a woman who when she came back for her annual evaluation that her memory had actually gotten worse. And I actually have two women like that. And one of them I ended up sending to a neurologist, and she did have some early signs of dementia, which she's now being treated for and doing great. And the other woman was suffering from sleep apnea, severe sleep apnea, and I had tried to get her to have a sleep study done about a year before, and when we repeated her cognitive test on the annual evaluation, she had done the opposite of what you had done. She had actually gotten worse, and then we further investigated and found out that that was really the problem, was a sleep disorder. So it really, I guess, illustrates the importance of coming back and retesting. And as a matter of fact, Lynn, you were reluctant to come back, and I kind of had to twist your arm at the end of a year. Isn't that true?
Well, I was very frightened to take that cognitive test again and have it be as bad, if not worse. But you were right, and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, it's, fear can be motivating or paralyzing, and we like to turn it into a motivating thing rather than getting us stuck, that's for sure. Now, another part of that testing is to really evaluate each patient's physical fitness, and we think that's really important. I mean, most of us are used to going to the doctor or, reading in a magazine or talking to friends. We know that we need to exercise, but very few of us have had a real evaluation of our physical fitness, our cardiopulmonary fitness, as well as our physical and muscular strength and balance. Lynn, was that the first time that a doctor had really gotten into that with you?
Oh, absolutely. I had the doctor ask the question, well, do you exercise? And my answer always was, well, I try to walk my dogs a couple times a week, but that was the extent of the conversation. And I also did not perform particularly well on that part of it. It was a little bit discouraging, and you all worked very carefully with me because it did take a while for you to figure out my program and the best way for me to handle things. Mm-hmm. And it took me a number of months before I was ready and had enough energy to exercise. Mm-hmm. And that's continued over the year and a half I've been working with you.
Yeah, I was just talking to you earlier. Now you're talking about working with your trainer and, really approaching it from a whole different perspective, because my recollection is that after we did your VO2 max, which is the test that we do to assess your cardiopulmonary fitness, that, we suggested that you start to ramp up your walking and probably maybe even, suggested some weightlifting, et cetera. And it took a little while for you to get to that point. And now I think you're way ahead of that and can see some real improvement not only now, but you're excited about the future from that perspective.
Well, I'm really excited because now I walk my dogs at least 5 days a week, 2 miles.
Wow.
And then I'm also working with a trainer 3 days a week. I work out. I do weightlifting an hour 3 times a week. I can now bench press 55 pounds.
Yay!
I actually have weightlifting gloves. And which I never thought I would own in my whole life. And I set new goals for myself in that now I'm strong. I want to have the muscles show, so I'm working with my trainers in that direction. Again, anybody who knew me knew that I didn't exercise, and my friends are absolutely floored when I show them my muscles now. And I can't help but do that. I have to.
Yeah, of course. Well, and you were telling me earlier that you've been shopping a bit lately, and like all women, we usually enjoy our shopping. That's become a little more fun for you?
Oh, my God, it's been wonderful. And I really have a wonderful husband, and he's just really been telling me how beautiful I look, and he's really fine with me shopping and enjoying the way I look just as much as I am.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, speaking of husbands, let's talk a little bit about sex. You mentioned earlier that you were having some vaginal dryness. What about, your libido and sex in general before the program? Where were you with all that?
Oh, it was really sad. Really pathetic, again. We've always had a very healthy sex life, and for me, it just kind of dropped off into an abyss. I had virtually no sex drive, which wasn't like me. I had a real problem with vaginal dryness, and the worst problem was I had no feeling. I mean, there was no, I just couldn't feel anything. It was, I don't know how to explain it any better, but nothing felt good is the best way to put it.
Had you talked to your gynecologist or to any doctors about that before?
Yeah, it's kind of like, everything else I've been saying about my doctors. Everybody, it's a sign of getting older, you're perimenopausal, telling me, to use a lubricant. But again, nobody had a real good answer for me. And I was feeling I'm getting older and I just have to live this way. But it was really disappointing. I happen to like my husband. I love my husband and missed that closeness. And frankly, sex can be fun, and I missed all that.
Well, it certainly, is fun and is physical, and then also if it has been a part of your relationship, it's part of the glue that tends to hold relationships that have that as a key, and so to not have it can really be devastating and upsetting. And we do, talk about sex in the evaluation, and if it's important to the patient and their relationship, then it's something that we really want to help to get back on track. And this is all about helping you to feel more energetic and more youthful and more healthy. And if a healthy sex life was part of your youthfulness, then it's probably important as you move through the aging process as well.
Well, I think you remember the Annie Lennox song, I Feel Like I'm 17 Again.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. It's a wonderful feeling. I have a smile on my face.
Yeah, that's great. That's what we want to see, and that's what you deserve to have. I mean, you've hit a milestone when you hit that 40 or 50 or 60, and you deserve to feel great and not necessarily feel old. And, I got interested in this program myself in my early 40s and was having some issues, many of which you just described, feeling tired, and I was having some menstrual issues, et cetera, and I would go to doctors and they would say, well, that comes with turning 40. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to say 50 if I'm feeling that way in my 40s. And, I'm 55 now and I feel 10 years younger, definitely, and probably younger than that, really. Lynn, so during that evaluation day, about 2 hours of that is spent with a physician. In your case, you spent that with me. And we go through pretty much everything. We go through your labs. You mentioned earlier someone will just call you over the phone. Well, I don't know if you remember, but we went through every page of the labs. That was, I guess, a new experience for you.
Well, it was what was so amazing about it, usually when you get blood work from your doctor, it might be one page, and you might get 10 or 15 things, maybe 20 things that they look at. But my first blood results from you were 4 pages long. And so not only did I get my results, every month I get my results compared to the month before so I can see my progress. Every month you can adjust how I'm feeling and what my numbers look like. I've told some of my physicians that I have now that I get 4 pages of results back from my blood test, and they can't believe it. So you all monitor everything really, really, really closely, and that gives me a comfort level that at some point, if something's off, you can tell me, look, this is something we need to look into.
Yeah, I know myself when I've taken family members to the doctor, I have to kind of chase down results, which, it's not all totally their fault, really. They're so darn busy and worrying about insurance reimbursement and all that sort of thing. I think that's part of it as well. And also we're trying, again, to get in there and figure out kind of what makes you tick and help to set up a program for you. So that's what happened, right? We went through all the labs, and then we came up with a plan for you, and that plan involved some dietary changes, as we mentioned, some exercise and some activity changes, some vitamin supplements, and some bioidentical hormone supplementation as well. Now, how did that feel? I mean, that was a big day, and then at the end of the day, we had a plan.
Well, truthfully, I had 2 reactions to it. One of them was that it was a little daunting because you can't just take the supplements and your life's going to change. What makes this important, what makes this program so wonderful is that you have one doctor figuring out how your whole life what you need to do. You had a trainer sit down with me and go over what my exercise program should look like, a nutritionist to go over what the best way for me to eat. So it was a little daunting because I realized I had to make some big changes if I wanted to make my life better and healthier. But after that, after I got going, I realized for the first time in my life I had a roadmap for my health and my future. And again, I feel like I'm monitored. I feel like you've taught me a healthy lifestyle, and I feel like I can grow old in a healthy way and in a productive way. I don't feel like I'm getting older. It just feels differently.
You know, I tell people all the time, if you're looking for the magic pill, this is not where you need to come, because we don't just prescribe a hormone and that's the end of it. And I want people to understand that coming in, that, there's more to you than just estrogen.
That's true.
And it certainly is an important part of you, but that's not the only part. And our success is really, at least 50-50, our program and the patient effort and the partnership that we have with our patients, I think, is important. Now, I have to tell you, we have a lot of male patients, and we enjoy our male patients, and we have a lot of female patients too, but I do find a lot of women don't have that much trouble, plunking down several $1,000s for plastic surgery, but sometimes are a little reluctant to make that same kind of investment in their health. I mean, talk to me a little bit about that, Lynn, and your perspective.
That's a very good point. I have to say that I have no problem with plastic surgery. I've had a couple procedures myself and would not rule it out for the future. But I think people have to understand that a lot of beauty comes from within, from a healthy mind and a healthy body. I guess the best analogy I can think of is you can plant a flower in dirt and it's going to grow. But if you don't give it the proper nutrients, if you don't keep the weeds back, if you don't water it, if you don't do all those nurturing things, the flower can only bloom to a certain point. And what this program does in putting together the supplements and nutrients you need, good food and exercise, you can really take off and be absolutely gorgeous and bloom in your own way. Then if you need a little tweaking, that's nice to have there too. The program is not inexpensive. I have to say that it was something I had to think about. I was very lucky. My husband was totally supportive. But in my mind, this was the best money I could spend for myself in any way. They say you can't buy health, but I feel like I've bought the best I can get for myself. So I feel very good about the program and what I've spent.
Lynn, you're different in some ways from some women, because I find sometimes our female patients will take our recommendations and then change them, maybe talk to their girlfriends, get on the Internet, whatever, and it's not exactly what we'd like them to be doing. We didn't really have that with you. You really took that roadmap and went with it. I mean, what was the difference there, do you think?
Well, I think because I had already done a lot of the research, and I love to read and I love to research, so I've read magazines and read a lot on the Internet about health because I was very concerned about my health. And I, bought into your program very quickly because what you said made sense to me. And that was because it was a 3-point program, again, diet, exercise, and the supplements. And it worked. I mean, I didn't have to make any changes because it was working. I think that if you work the program will work for you. You don't need to look outside the program for any other answers. And anything that wasn't working for me, I could talk to you about it. You would either explain it to me, we would adjust my program. I didn't need to go anywhere else. I had you and your staff, who are wonderful, helping me every step of the way. I didn't need anyone else.
And I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but I think, too, that over time that our relationship, there was some trust there after you kind of saw, oh, well, this seemed to be working, so now I'll do this part, too. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. And You all became a real lifeline for me, especially when I began. And it took some adjustments of everything in the beginning for me to get started. But I think, Dr. Barber, you're very easy to talk to. You're very personable, as is the rest of your staff. It's you walk in and it's a nice environment and everybody's friendly. So I just responded to everybody in your program. I just felt like the people were there for me. Mm-hmm. And it was geared to me. It didn't matter what you do for other clients. You were going to work with me, and you didn't give up on me. It was tough in the beginning. And I, had some moments where I thought, I don't know, but you had me hang in there and kept working with me, and, Jeremy would call, and Katie would call, and Carrie would call, and it's just a wonderful program, and it's not like going to the doctor where it's a cold environment and you don't know it's a different receptionist from the year before, and you don't know anybody, and everybody's, in some offices they're brusque and sit here and I'll take your blood. It's very different. It's a warm, welcoming environment, and for someone who is not feeling well, I mean, that's what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you had said something earlier about that you feel younger again, and so what's your plan for going forward now? What kinds of things do you want to be doing that maybe you weren't doing before? Anything on that list?
Yeah, I do have a couple things on. I do have a couple things on my list, and I'm still figuring it out as we talk. First of all, I'm going to be 60 in a year and a half, and I want to look fabulous when I'm 60. So I'm continuing the diet and exercise. And actually, it's not a diet anymore. I shouldn't even use that word. It's just the way I live now. And I stopped saying I can't eat something. I say I just don't eat that. Mm-hmm. One of my major loves has been horseback riding, and I'm bringing that back into my life.
Great.
2 years ago when I went riding, I did not have enough strength to put my foot in the stirrup and swing my leg up over the saddle, and I can do that now. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be horseback riding again, and we've looked to make our trips more adventuresome with more hiking and, things that take a little bit more physical activity. So we love whitewater rafting, and I just want to be more physically active, and I feel like I can be. I feel like I'm still on the way up. I'm still making myself better through the program.
Well, that's a great way to put it, on your way up. Yeah, I think that's the scary part for so many of us, no matter what our age is. You feel like you've already crested and you're on the way down. That's not a good feeling at all. And, Lynn, I want to point out, because you probably wouldn't say this, but Lynn looks gorgeous now. I can't imagine how much better she's going to look at 60. And Lynn is our poster child at the moment. We just really felt like we wanted to use her in some of our marketing materials because her message, not only is she beautiful and photographs great, but her message is really important, and that you do have some control of your life and your health, and it's never too early and it's never too late to get a proactive age management plan in place, and it's a plan that is constantly changing, and why we have patients come in every year to reassess their progress, to address some areas if maybe the progress isn't quite what we'd like to see, and to set new goals and a new list for every year, and you've been really great at that, and I'm excited to see how things are going to look in a year and a half.
Well, I can't wait to see what my body fat index is, because I've already lost in 1 year, I lost 6% body fat, which is pretty amazing.
That is awesome, really awesome. Well, we're so proud of you, and, as I would tell you when I talked to you on the phone over the last year, you made my week. It's not even my day. You made my week just talking to you and hearing how well things are going for you. Well, I think, Lynn, that I'm at the point where I'd like to be wrapping it up and opening this up for questions, but I want to ask you if there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to add at this point in time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would, like to say to other women is you owe it to yourself to try to be the best woman that you can be. I know that many of us are wives and mothers, and we have jobs and whatever, and we've spent a tremendous amount of time taking care of others and running businesses. And I think it's very important. Women need to learn to take better care of themselves, and I think this is a wonderful way to take care of yourself. Maybe if I had started earlier when I was younger in my 40s, I wouldn't have kind of gone downhill as far as I did, but it's truly the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm just thankful that I found it. And women need to, this is a great time in your life when you're in your 40s and your 50s, your kids are getting older and you have time for yourself. Put the time and money into yourself. You'll feel much better, and I now feel like I can grow old happily and healthy.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't have said that better myself. All right, great. Well, Shane, if you can tell the listeners how they can ask a question, and Lynn and I will be happy to address them.
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Barber, and Lynn will now be accepting questions from the audience. To enter the question queue, simply press the number 1 on your touchtone phone now. Be aware that pressing number 1 more than once will remove you from the queue, so be sure to press it just once. And we'll answer all questions in the order that they are received. If you give us just a moment, we'll see if anybody joins the queue. Looks like everybody is being shy at this time.
Uh-oh. Well, I think that a couple of people had emailed in some questions, so perhaps we can move to those at this point in time.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, uh-huh.
All right. I did receive one question, and it's just, does hormone replacement therapy cause cancer?
Good question. Good question. Well, there are different kinds of hormone therapy, so let's talk about that a little bit, and then I'll let Lynn comment as well. I'm guessing that the question was directed to me first. We talk and have looked at synthetic hormones, which are what historically women and men were using, and those are hormones that have been altered somewhat so that they can be mass-produced. And then there are what we call bioidentical hormones, and there are several other names for them. And the reason they're called bioidentical is that they are really the true hormonal structure. And if you think about hormones being like a key and lock, you want the hormone to fit into a receptor like a key would fit into a lock. And once they are changed a little bit and made synthetic for production, they just don't fit as well into the key and lock. So there are some studies showing that progestin, for example, and estrogen, synthetic again there, may increase your risk of cancer in some women. As far as bioidentical hormones causing cancer, there really is no evidence to that effect. And of course, you know, women do get cancers, and our idea and our program is about decreasing your risk of all kinds of cancers by keeping you healthy, keeping your vitamin D levels up, getting you to exercise. One of the biggest risks for breast cancer, of course, is family history, length of time of your whole menstrual cycle, in other words, how early you start your periods and whether you've had a full-term pregnancy or not, alcohol use, women who drink more than 2 alcoholic beverages a day, women that eat a lot of saturated fats from animal fats, women who are more sedentary and that have increased abdominal obesity. So we prescribe hormones based on a patient's blood work and their particular needs, their own history, their disease risks, and then we compound those hormones, which are from plant sources, to be exactly the dose that we want for our patients. So it's a much more precise and lower doses of hormones being used in general. Lynn, any comments about that for you?
Yes, I do have several comments. I had the same question when I got started, and I was very satisfied with Dr. Barber's explanation. One of the reasons that I felt the program was very safe was the fact that many of her patients are doctors, which gave me a comfort level. Mm-hmm. But the other side of that is it's my understanding that as you get older, your hormones decline. As they decline, the other organs in your body are not well supported. Mm-hmm. Am I saying this right?
Sure.
Okay. And then if you don't have the hormones in your body that's going to keep your heart healthy, your liver healthy, your brain healthy, then those organs are going to begin to deteriorate. So it's not just about sex or hot flashes. Your hormones also support the rest of the health of your body. My feeling was I wanted to do the hormones because I wanted my organs to be kept as healthy as they could be. That while, statistically there's no risk for getting cancer, if your body's going to deteriorate. So that, to me, is a worse risk.
Well, think about your own risk of osteoporosis, which we've already talked about. And the other thing, too, is, that memory issue and dementia, and, that's one of the reasons why it occurs as we age, is that's one of the organs, the brain, that tends to deteriorate with age. The other thing that most people can relate to, women, as they pass through menopause, start to have trouble with their cholesterol. That's because estrogen has a very positive effect on the liver's metabolism and production of cholesterol. So it's not by chance that when we start to look at our cholesterol after the age of 45 or 50, as our hormones start to decline, that we see our cholesterol shoot up. So you're right. I mean, that's the other systems. And the number one cause of death in women still in this country is heart disease. So that, has to be at the top of our list. And, of course, cholesterol is just one of the contributors to heart disease that we want to keep an eye on. So it's really balancing all those things together. Any other questions, Shane?
Currently, there is no one in the question queue, and I want to remind everybody once again, if they wish to enter the question queue and ask a question, simply press the number 1 on your touch-tone phone, and we'll answer all questions in the order that they are received.
All right, we'll wait one more minute here. I can't believe all these women are being that shy, but that's okay. You can also, Shane's going to give you our contact information, so you can call the office or you can email us your particular concerns, and we'll be happy to address those personally. Shane, if there are no more questions, do you want to wrap things up for us?
Certainly. Thank you for calling in. Please take advantage of our Valentine's special. Secure your executive health evaluation by February 14th, and we'll take $500 off of the cost of your evaluation. Scheduling your evaluation is easy. You can call Dr. Mickey Barber directly at 843-724-7272. That's 843-724-7272. Email her at mbarber@cenegenicscarolinas.com. That's MBARBER ampersand CENEGENICS dash CAROLINAS.com, or register online at www.cenegenicscarolinas.com. That's www.cenegenicscarolinas.com. Cenegenics Carolinas is open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, you can reach Dr. Mickey Barber directly at 843-724-7272. That's 843-724-7272. Email her at mbarber@cenegenicscarolinas.com. That's MBARBER ampersand CENEGENICS dash CAROLINAS.com, or register online at www.cenegenicscarolinas.com, which is www.cenegenicscarolinas.com.